Okay, so we're going to talk about punctuating dialogue, and there's lots and lots of different parts to this, which is what can get a little bit confusing. So I've tried to break it down into different parts of it that are all related to punctuating dialogue. Okay, so rule number 1, quotation marks surround all words that come directly from a person's mouth. So if somebody says it out loud, it goes in quotation marks. For example, and the reason we're doing this with commas is because part of it is a comma rule too. I love myself. You see I've got my quotation marks here. You are pretty great. My students agreed. I know. I replied. Okay? Because that's what each of these is what came out of my mouth. Now remember, this is going to be on the website as well. So you don't have to, and I'll do a printed out version as well. So you guys know that quotation marks goes around what you say. Always capitalize the first word of dialogue. It is a sentence within a sentence. So even though I start my sentence with Jennifer said, I still have a cap here. Capitalization is a worthwhile enterprise. The aliens replied, capital Y, yes, I agree. So the two things I've said so far, quotation marks go around everything that comes out of your mouth, and the beginning, the first word of every quotation is capitalized. Okay, the next thing I'm going to talk about is when you start a new paragraph. So you're always going to start a new paragraph, and that includes indenting, as you see here. I'm not starting at the margin here. Each time there's a new speaker. Hello, class. Hello, teacher. How are you today? We are very excited to punctuate dialogue, teacher. In fact, we're so excited we hardly know what to do with ourselves. Now, why didn't I indent right here? Sarah?
Because it's the same people talking.
It's the same person talking, so I don't need to start a new paragraph. If somebody, the person who said, how are you today, then says, yes, you are, I'm going to start a new paragraph. Now, the one thing that can get pretty confusing about that is that even if you switch focus onto another speaker and that speaker isn't saying anything, you still need a new paragraph. Hello, class, said the teacher. I've indented here. The students sighed loudly. They didn't say anything, but I still indented because I went from the focusing on the teacher to focusing on the students. Okay? And then I said, back to the teacher speaking, I said, hello, you big whiners. The students just sighed again. Again, new paragraph, even though they're not saying anything. Then they began wandering around the room, moping and scratching their noses. Okay, so they continued. This is the same, focus on the same person, so I don't indent here. And then back to the teacher, get with it, people, yelled the teacher. So this is all about when you have new paragraphs. Every time you switch the focus in the story to somebody else, you have a new paragraph. Questions about that? Okay. Okay. This is the next part, which is the comma, that is the connection between what we talked about on Tuesday and today is we're talking about comma rules. But it's hard to talk about the punctuation comma rule without talking about the other parts of that punctuating dialogue. So, a comma separates the dialogue from the dialogue tag, and if the dialogue tag comes after the quote, it is not capitalized. So, he said, comma, hello, earthlings. Okay? You still got the capital H there because we talked about that's the first word of dialogue. But the comma goes after said and before what the person said. Why, hello, astronaut, comma. This is not capitalized. The aliens replied. You have a comma here and a lowercase. And people make this mistake all the time. So you want to make sure you have a comma, lowercase. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And even if you have a exclamation mark or a question mark at the end of the line of dialogue, the dialogue tag is still not capitalized. So you are a snot, exclamation point, yelled the alien. This is lowercase. Everybody wants to put it as uppercase. Yelled the alien. Okay, but that's not even a sentence. So it's lowercase. I'm a snot, question mark, asked the girl. Lowercase. Indeed, insisted the offended alien. So you see a new paragraph and lowercase dialogue tags. So the dialogue tag comes before, you have a comma, then the quotation. If it comes after, you have the quotation, and then a lowercase dialogue tag. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Do you do it in your writing?
Yes.
Well, that's good. At least somebody does. Okay. We're coming near the end, so don't worry. But there's more excitement here. Okay. So some quotations are divided. If the dialogue tag interrupts the quotation, for example, here I'm saying, why is your skin green? But he asked is interrupting it. So there's going to be a comma on both sides. You know how we talked about appositives, interrupters in a sentence?
Yeah.
Like, my dentist, comma, the best dentist in the world, comma, makes me schedule my appointments 1 year in advance. It's kind of like that. You could take it out of the sentence and it would still make sense. Why is your skin green? Because, comma, they explained, comma, we are aliens. In that case, because this sentence is interrupted, this is going to be lowercase. This is going to be lowercase. You're going to have commas on either side, and the fit where you're continuing the quotation is lowercase. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah or no?
Yeah.
Tell me if it doesn't.
No, it does.
Okay. Now it gets a little more complicated because you can have dialogue that continues but is in more than one sentence. Here you see, aliens are fantastic, they insisted. You've got the comma, you've got the lowercase here. Then you have a period because aliens are fantastic is a sentence on its own, right? It can stand on its own. It's got a subject, a verb, complete thought. And so can we rule the world, subject, verb, complete thought. Because they can each stand on their own, you're going to have to end this sentence before continuing the dialogue. Do you see what I'm saying? You would, if you said aliens are fantastic, we rule the world, it would be a run-on. So in that case, you've got a comma, lowercase dialogue tag, period, and then a new sentence with new quotation marks. Here's another one. I do not find my spelling to be good. I do not find aliens, to be fantastic. He replied. That's a sentence on its own, right? Perhaps I should get to know one. So this is a period here and a capital here because this stands on its own and that stands on its own. Are you with me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, finally, I think this is the final one. If you're describing an action before or after a quote, it needs to be in a separate sentence. People want to combine these all the time. Aliens are fun, she exclaimed. Period, capital, she grabbed her purse and ran away. That's a separate thought. So you've got to have a period and a capital. I dropped my book on the floor. Period. Oh my goodness, aliens eek. People always want to put a comma right here, but you're only going to put a comma there if what? If there's a dialogue tag. She said, oh my goodness, aliens eek. Okay? Make sense? Let me tell you one other thing. Oh, no, there's more. We talked about this, the punctuation. Oh, make sure that the punctuation is going inside the quotation marks. Don't put the quotation mark and then the question mark outside of it, or the comma. A lot of times people put the comma outside of it. The punctuation goes inside the quotation marks. And this is something people always ask me about here. If you have a quote within a quote, like if I say out loud, Max said, what day is it? I'm saying that out loud, so it has to be in quotation marks. But what Max said also should be in quotation marks, right?
Right.
So what you do in that case is you have a single quotation mark inside the double quotation mark. I cannot believe she said you are a snot. See the single quotes, you should blast her away, said the insulted alien's mother. Yeah.
Would you do that if you had like a book title in?
Book titles are actually underlined or put in italics.
Okay.
But short story, I suppose that's what you would do. So they do go in quotation marks. Okay, I'm going to stop this. Command. Control.